So today we're going to explore why narcissists cannot grieve and what is really going on. So when we're talking about narcissists, one of the things that we want to really understand is that being entangled and embroiled in codependent narcissistic relationships generally means that the codependent is the person who is the most loyal. The codependent is the one who forgives. The codependent is the one who understands. The codependent is the peacekeeper. The codependent is generally the person that is taking the hit, absorbing the shock, and rationalizing and minimizing their own experiences for the sake of the relationship. In my own personal journey and through my struggles through life, and let's face it, if you're human, suffering is part of the experience here. It just is. You are someone who has been affected by childhood trauma, whether you realize it or not. You've been affected by childhood experiences. They've shaped your id, ego, and superego. Thank you, Freud. And you will have some shadows to have to deal with. As a codependent, myself on this journey, I embrace the fact that I've had shadows. I still have shadows that I'm trying to work through, meaning I have not always felt good enough. I have always felt like it was my job to keep the peace. I have always felt that it was my responsibility to put other people before myself. And in doing that, I was operating from the inner child's wounds, hoping that I could keep people together. This fear of abandonment, this fear of if I put myself first, I will be seen as selfish by these people that I love. And that would be the worst thing in the world. At least that's how it feels when you're 3. If you've been chastised for having a need and called selfish, then when you're 3, your mind just decides, it becomes impressed with this identity like it's the worst thing in the world to be seen as selfish because of mom's reaction to my needs. So I guess I shouldn't have any needs. So that gets pushed into the shadow. It gets pushed down. We repress it. We suppress it. And it isn't until we start exposing these shadows or these experiences, these cognitive distortions, as someone else might put it, we stay stuck in these dynamics. So when it comes to a codependent narcissistic dynamic, I think we're waking up. I know that when I began to wake up and I started to do introspection, when I started to do personal development work, it in a broad stroke, it became very obvious that I was in a very unhealthy marriage, that I was with someone who was not interested in deep introspection. I was not with someone who wanted to figure out his part in the demise of the relationship, and I was. And so because my children were involved and I saw how dysfunctional we were, I didn't know where we were going. I just knew I couldn't stay. I just knew that I was going to keep doing this work. I was going to keep digging, and I couldn't be with somebody who wasn't going to dig. But I didn't understand what I was dealing with then. But I knew that I had to leave, and I'm so grateful that I did. Now, it's almost like all of this wisdom and knowledge is backfilling now. It's like, oh, that's why that happened. Oh, that's why that happened. So when you are codependent and you get to a point where you just can't take it anymore, it's a very good place to be because the pain is an activation. The contrast of where you want to be compared to where you are is so painful that it causes you to start thinking and feeling and acting differently. Nothing changes until something changes. It's a quantum law. Another quantum law that applies to our thoughts and feelings, it's not hokey pokey, it's science. Don't believe me, look it up. Is that an object stays in motion until acted upon by a force of greater mass or greater force. So if you think about it, it's like my thoughts are going to stay on this karmic wheel until another more powerful thought bumps it off that train track. And pain is that activation point. It causes us to stop looking outside of ourselves, which is what a narcissist wants. So a narcissist wants your attention on them because they're stuck in the power role. Everything is about power. Every conversation, who's going to win. It's like every emotional interaction is emotional psychological warfare because they're stuck and they need to have the power here. So they'll gaslight. They'll project, they'll make stuff up just to be the last person who spoke, just to have the last word, just so that they don't feel less powerful. Very serious to see that, because if you're someone who is in a relationship with the narcissist, this is why you can't negotiate with the narcissist, because they're stuck in this power shadow, if you will. They have to win. And you can't cause them to rid themselves of that pattern or that shadow, because what makes them a narcissist is that that is their shield. The the refusal to look within is their shield. What is it shielding them from? Everything that they've run from their entire life. In most cases, it's trauma. It's the shame of feeling powerless, or it is the shame of feeling abandoned. It is the shame of familial rejection. And so the power comes in, and it's like, well, ego says, well, how do I avoid ever feeling or allowing the psyche to ever feel that again? Well, we get into power struggles. Everything becomes a power game. No matter who I coach, all walks of life, when people finally reach out to me, it is because they are usually so exhausted by the narcissistic relationship. They have tried everything. And they get to a point where the narcissist just exhausts them. And the pain of being with them is so immense that they have to start thinking differently. And suddenly they want to do the work, and they want a guide to help them to do the introspection. Now, during this introspection, you have to see it, or you could see it, and I suggest that you see it as a grieving process. It's the journey that a narcissist is not going to take. Narcissists don't grieve, because narcissists, when they grieve, they go into, how do I recoup from this loss of power? So what replaces natural grieving is rage, is domination, it's gaslighting, it's rewriting the story. So when you end a relationship with a narcissist, to recoup, what they have to do is, after they're stunned by the fact that you're moving away, they're literally stunned. When you finally say, enough is enough, and I'm not giving into this relationship anymore, your loyalty has just been dissolved. Your presence in their life has been taken for granted. When you suddenly pull that back, a narcissist is in a state of shock, like, wait a minute. But they're not missing you. They're missing being able to have someone in their life that tolerated them. They miss their control over you. They miss the narcissistic power game, where perhaps at first it was they caused you to feel like they were entitled to have you praise them. Maybe they guilted you to take care of them. Maybe they projected on you. Maybe they accused you of things that you weren't guilty of. Maybe they had their distorted perception of you, and they made you worry about what they thought about you. Maybe they were so confident in the rewriting of the story that it made you wobble a little bit. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm wrong here. You see, that's what healthy people do. Maybe it is me. And a healthy person will take the introspection, they will go inside themselves, and they will explore, how is it that I have created the chaos in this relationship? A healthy person won't resort ultimately to, I have to come out on top here at all costs, even if that means that I have to annihilate this person who has always been there for me. Even if I have to destroy everything he or she loves, I have to come out on top here. Why? They're protecting their fractured sense of self. They're protecting their ego. They're protecting themselves from getting in touch with the wounds that are so deep that their ego, their narcissism, has shielded them from. And that's what makes narcissists dangerous to your mental health. Looking back on my own life, I can see the patterns in my life, and it's almost like this review, like, "Oh my god," like, there's that pattern again, and time and time again in my own life, with the people that I've loved, the people that have been a part of my life. When there started to be chaos in the relationship, I always tried to fix it. I tried to find a way around it. It was as if the sand was falling between my fingers, but you know what? I'm a rescuer. I'm a fixer. I have to hold this together. But when it came to a point, and usually it had to do with my children, when a narcissist in my life went after my kids, it was like my head would spin around. It's like, okay, I could finally see the narcissism, the power plays, the grandstanding, the righteousness. Pride always comes before the fall. And when I reflect, I'm like, wow, that's how I know that I was in relationships with people who are highly narcissistic, because they don't grieve relationships like healthy people do. When I got divorced, I didn't want to get divorced. I had 3 young children. I didn't have a job. I quit college. My family, I was the scapegoat from my perspective. They saw me as somebody who was just, you could never satisfy her. She was over emotional, whatever. This is how they referred to me. And I know this because it's things that my own mother said. And so part of my journey coming up and out of the codependent shadows, if you will, was learning to accept I cannot change someone else's faulty perception of me. And the longer I try, the more I lose myself. And I got to a point where the screams inside of me, I could not silence anymore with enough suppression, with enough denial. That's why I got sick. And it wasn't like anybody that should have really cared that, wow, Lisa's really getting sick with the asthma, the migraine headaches. It wasn't like anybody came to the rescue. Although I always ran to everyone else's rescue. I wasn't even aware or cognizant of the one-way relationships that I was in. Feeling for the people that I loved, imagining what it was like to be them, and being there full on whatever they needed, continually abandoning myself, and never really being cognizant of this idea that they were not reciprocal relationships. So when I left my ex-husband, I left terrified, and I did not want to leave. And everything that I was afraid of happened. The abandonment, the rejection, the twisting of the stories, the leaving out of crucial points of the stories. And really this whole entire power play that was built on, now I see it, an attempt to prevent this person from going within, from down to needing to be the person who, at least in court documents, it looked like in family court that he divorced me. And I was like, you got it. You want to divorce me on paper, no problem. That represents narcissism. The inability to process the truth, the inability to say, you weren't perfect, but I wasn't perfect either. And how do we let this go with integrity and grace? So a narcissist will not grieve a marriage in a healthy way. A narcissist will not grieve a relationship dissolving in a healthy way. How a healthy person grieves is through the 5 stages of death and dying, which is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. And that's why narcissists always lose, because I do believe codependents are not healthy. We are toxic. But I do think if we're comparing narcissistic codependence, I do believe that a codependent has a far greater chance at awakening and looking within than a narcissist, in my humble opinion. That has been my experience personally and professionally. The narcissists that we have in our life, both Anthony and myself, do not do deep dives. They get angry, they minimize, they band together like a cult. They don't tell the whole story. They get vindictive. And one of the worst things that they do to save themselves is to minimize your role in their life. I remember when we were going through the divorce and I had finally left my ex-husband. We got into our new home. And the things that he said just minimized everything that ever happened between the two of us. I was the one who cared for his ailing sister. And after she passed, I was grief struck by the whole thing. And his response was, "What did you ever do for my sister?" It hurt me, but I didn't understand that this was him acting out the power. He had to be dominant. In that situation, maybe he heard that, wow, Lisa really has shown up for my family here, but he had to quickly snatch it away because he couldn't go within and see why that upset him, because it challenged his stance with his family. He was terrified to go up against his family, which represents a wound, but I paid the price. Our marriage paid the price. Our children paid the price. I was not perfect, I can guarantee you. In the latter stages of codependency, you will have depression. You will have severe acting out. You will have complete emotional dysregulation. You will have irrational thoughts, but that's your breakthrough. And if you stick with it, and if you understand the process of transformation that you're under, then I can tell you, as someone who guides thousands of codependents through the transformation journey, that is the point where everything's changing for you. You're letting go of paradigms. You're shattering beliefs. You're confronting your role in this relationship. You're saying, I can't take this sickness anymore. When you love a narcissist, you have to understand you love a potential version of them, a version of them that they help coax in their grandiosity, a version of them that is built to protect their fragile ego. That's what you love. And as you begin to get minimized and marginalized, and they lose respect for you, you keep clinging because of your wounds. Maybe I need to seek approval. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not saying it the right way, right? All our mommy and daddy stuff. I have to feel seen. He doesn't see me. She doesn't see me. That's my fault. It's the worst thing in the world for this person to be upset with me. We fear disapproval. So in our own shadow work, the shadows of the codependent that we've repressed, we're just acting it out until the pain becomes so immense we can't take it anymore. And so some of us have a line where it's cheating. Some of us have a line where it's like, he just didn't come home and he didn't tell me, or she didn't come home and never told me, or I got nitpicked once too many times, or I'm tired of the outbursts, or I'm tired of the gaslighting. I'm tired of the passive aggressiveness. I'm tired of the lack of accountability. I'm tired of trying to hold this together and this person doesn't care. I'm tired of the one-way stuff. For me, it's always been my kids. That has been like, okay, see it. Like, you're okay with hurting them, no matter how much I love you, no matter how many fantasies I hold about one day we're going to be together and everything's going to be fine, whether it's friends or family, everything's going to be okay. That is the line that I have. And I release the fantasy to reality. When we release fantasy to reality, it's a really painful moment. And a lot of us buck at that point. A lot of us like, no, this is too hard. And I remember being in therapy and being at that point, and my therapist just shook his head like, and I knew, even though he didn't say it, I knew what he meant. He's like, you're not done. Like, you're at a point where you're realizing like, okay, you get it. Your relationship is not great. Like, you're codependent, you have these issues, but maybe this is as good as it gets, right? I still didn't understand my ex's dynamics, and I didn't understand, and I felt bad saying, is this person like narcissistic? Because he was such a good boy. according to society. I really struggled. I couldn't see it. Maybe I didn't want to see it. Maybe I didn't believe it. But when our marriage dissolved and I showed him, I'm not budging here. I'm staying in therapy. I'm reading these books. I'm going to 12-step meetings. I'm starting to eat better. I'm starting to work out. I'm going to bed earlier. I'm doing self-care now. And I'm creating these strategies to help me hold on to myself. I mean, I was creating the 12-week breakthrough coaching program while I was learning to understand what was wrong within me and how I could fix it. So that's where the 12-week breakthrough coaching program came from. It was like, okay, this strategy, this shift, this framework helped me hold on to myself when the storms came. What I now see that I didn't know then, which I hope brings those of you who are in this situation tremendous clarity, because it will help organize your mind. And when you organize your mind, which is what I teach, is that when you do that, you're going to be able to make hard decisions in a quicker amount of time, which is going to reduce friction and resistance in your life. And you're going to be able to accelerate to the higher realms of consciousness where peace can be found. So what you want to understand is that if you're in a relationship dynamic that is dissolving, watch for the signs of devaluation. Does this person truly seek negotiation, or is it constant devaluation? When a conflict arises, and every relationship is going to have conflict because none of us are healed to perfection. So it's not our true self in relationships to other people. It's parts of our shadows. And the closer you get to your heart space, like romantic relationships or sibling relationships, mother-father relationships, that's where all of your wounded stuff resides. So you want to be aware of that in yourself. Who's having this conversation right now? What part of me is engaging with this person right now? What's really going on? You can't do that objectively with another person until you start doing it with yourself. That's why introspection is so important. Narcissists don't do the deep dive. They're running from their truth. And those of us in relationships, those of us in families, those of us in partnerships that do the deep dive, that separates you from someone who's not willing to do the deep dive. Now, what you'll notice when you hold your ground with the narcissist is that at first they're shocked and they will be stunned by you holding on to yourself. They may play the game, they may breadcrumb you, they may go into therapy for a little while, but if you hold on to yourself, what will happen is devaluation. You were never that important to me anyway. You are not as important to me as you thought you were. So everything that you've ever done for them, they have to poo-poo it. They have to minimize it. So your history with this person, out the window. That is to save their fractured sense of self. So it's the story they tell themselves to prop up the mask, because if the mask falls, they have to confront their deepest childhood wounds, which they're not willing to do. Maybe in another lifetime, maybe through another experience. But this is where narcissists will implode if they don't understand the journey that they're on. Their psyches cannot confront what is in the subconscious mind, what they've suppressed. They don't know how to do it. That's why I create frameworks to teach people how to do this, because when you get there and you get to that wound, it is terrifying. You will feel what it feels like to be that abandoned baby in the crib and no one's coming for you. You will feel it. But from a higher state of consciousness, there's nothing that you can't do with your eyes set on the goal and with the framework. So what you will notice if you hold on to yourself is that your history with them is gone. They start telling people that you were the ungrateful one. You were too emotional. You were too preachy. You were never really there for them. You were the disloyal one. You couldn't hack it. You were the one that threw them away. Even though they set this up in a way that you had no other choice but to walk away, they will never see it that way. It will be about power. It will be about the last word. It will be about walking away the person who was wounded by you. So what you won't hear is negotiation. You won't hear fairness. You won't hear appreciation. You will hear it's my way or the highway. You will hear I am right in my perception of you, and that's all that matters. They will twist their perception of you. That's where you have to be careful. Give them permission to have whatever perception of you they require to maintain their narrative. Just give it to them. Give them permission. Hand it to them on a silver platter. That's why I say your faulty perception of me is not my responsibility. It's what you tell yourself so that you don't implode, because you're not willing to do this inner work. And to me, that's very sad. But unless you disengage from a narcissist, they're going to pull you into their root chakra stuff. They're going to pull you into your shadows. Now, a narcissist needs someone who's going to dance with them on this stage. And they need codependents. They need people pleasers. They need fixers. They need empaths. They need the most loyal people in their life who are going to tolerate their crap, even though everybody around them has fallen away and they've destroyed relationship after relationship after relationship. You might be the last man standing. You might be the person who has always been there for them. And it will be hard for you to walk away, but I think it'll be easier when you understand that narcissists eventually devolve in this way. These are the stages they go through. It's not healthy grief. It's devaluation. It's minimization. It's projection. It's stonewalling. It's denial. It's repression. It's all of that, and eventually rage. And after rage, I think that there's a great potential that if they don't find another source of narcissistic supply, somebody who just cries uncle, somebody that lets them huff and puff and blow the house down and tell everybody how right they are and how wrong everybody else is, which is righteousness. If they don't find another person, another flying monkey, I think that's when they very quickly devolve, because we're all a matter of life force energy. And narcissists have, whether they realize it or not, they get a lot of their energy from the people that tolerate them. And so if people start to pull away from tolerating them, they can't go within because they refuse to go within. They can't access their own light because the mask prevents them from accessing their light. The mask will prevent them from going within. It's a shield. Their narcissism is a shield. And so if you're not willing to go in to this very painful place, you can't come out of it. Rumi, the great Persian poet, says, the wound is where the light enters you. To truly heal from narcissism, to truly heal from childhood trauma, requires great humility. It requires grit. It requires deep patience. Because to heal what has happened to us in childhood does not happen overnight. It is a lifelong journey. Every great spiritual teacher, every great poet, every great writer, including Joseph Campbell and Shakespeare, Robert Frost, Lao Tzu, Abdullah, that trained Neville Goddard, like great mystical teachers from Rumi to Buddha to Christ, are all saying the same thing. The kingdom of heaven is within you. It's not outside of you, it's within you. But you have to walk up the consciousness scale. You've got to walk up the emotional scale. You've got to walk up and out of the subconscious mind. And certainly narcissists, by default, aren't willing to do that. They stay in the world of shadows. They create havoc, and they do not grieve. The true grieving process would cause them to come and have to face themselves, face their own mortality, face their own shadows. Because true grief comes down to a level of acceptance, and healthy people don't have to destroy people when the relationship ends. So if you're involved with a narcissist and the relationship is coming undone, think about these signs. Think about how you were the apple of their eye, or you were someone that they praised, and now you have no meaning in their life, none. And now when they retell their story about you, it's always tainted with a little bit of gray smoke. You're not important to them. But it's not that you were not important to them. It's the fact that you were so important to them that your silence is killing them. That you finally got to a point where you have the strength to walk away. And when you walk away, it's like you were saying to the narcissist, I loved you, even though you weren't perfect. And I stood by you and I hoped you'd wake up. You didn't wake up. Now you've come at me. You've exhausted me. And now I'm going to walk away. When you walk away, it's like you're saying, I have the strength to walk away from you, and they have to deal with their mask. So you want to cut ties with somebody who needs to devalue you in order to maintain a mask. This could be a mother. This could be a father. This could be a sister. This could be a brother. This could be an aunt. It could be an uncle. It could be a doctor. It could be a therapist. It could be a life coach. It could be a neighbor. It could be a best friend of 30 years or 40 or 50 years. Look for these signs, and I hope that this session has allowed you to feel a little bit more organized, give you a little bit more tools, a little bit more traits and symptoms to look out for while you're on this path of healing from codependency. If you're healing from codependency, undoubtedly you have narcissists in your life, and more than likely you were raised by one or two, or maybe a codependent who is very passive or even very aggressive. And this is the path forward. It is understanding what went wrong and rebuilding our lives and rebuilding the way that we think from the ground up, centered upon knowing that we are enough. And if we can build our framework from that plane of consciousness, there's nothing that you can't get through, dear one, because the spirit of source is within you. So we have to organize your mind. And I hope that this has helped bring clarity to that process for you. Hey, if you love this content, don't forget to check out the next video, and you can go to my website and take the codependency quiz.